Good evening, I'm Robbie Allanpay. The big stories tonight. Vaccines may arrive in the country as early as February. Vaccine czar Carlito Galvez says initial doses could be distributed in the latter part of next month, paving the way for the inoculation of some 50,000 healthcare workers. Several local governments have inked deals to procure shots from British drug maker AstraZeneca. The national government has likewise secured 30 million doses of the India-made Covovax vaccine. Despite repeated calls for devotees not to flock to Quiapo, around 300,000 Filipinos still troop to Manila for the Feast of the Black Nazarene. The Health Department is now calling on devotees to self-quarantine. The country's top cop wants a separate probe into the possible liability of the Makati police in their handling of Christine Decera's death. A special task force has been formed to look into the cabin cruise case. And House Democrats have intensified their calls for the ouster of outgoing U.S. President Donald Trump. They want Vice President Mike Pence to invoke the 25th Amendment. Let's start with government bearing its vaccine rollout targets this year. They expect shots to arrive as early as February. That would allow some 50,000 healthcare workers to be immunized against COVID-19 for starters. The interagency task force officials insist no delays on their part, just challenges and funding in global vaccine supply. Jenny Dongon with a big story.
Government officials are confident the public rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine in the country can start this first quarter. However, lawmakers want more than just confidence. Senators in today's hearing want a clear picture of the government's vaccine program. Senator Ping Lacson, for one, is seeking a more specific target date for the first batch of vaccinations.
We expect that on February 20, may makikita yung na-injectionan.
No, sir, this is the delivery. The expected delivery.
Delivery pa lang. Ang tanong ko nga, kailan yung unang bakuna?
More or less, sir, on that February 20 onwards. Kasi ang po natin, sir, is
How onward is onward?
meaning more or less on that week, sir. On that week. So it will be at the third week of
Kasi roughly, para naman umasa yung kababayan natin na sa February 28, sa March 1, mababakunahan sila. Pwede bang i-share mo lang sa amin? Kailan yung unang bakuna sa tansya mo?
It will be at the third week or fourth week of February. Kasi sir natin, this supply of demand is very volatile talaga, sir.
Galvez says 50,000 health workers in Metro Manila will be inoculated first, and that 2 million more will be immunized by April. Health Secretary Francisco Duque says the best case scenario would be to vaccinate 50 to 70 million Filipinos within 2021. This means 100 individuals are to be vaccinated per day in over 4,000 designated vaccination sites. But Duque notes this planned rollout may take 3 years.
We are on track to providing immunization services to 50 to 70 million Filipinos, provided, again, that the global supply of vaccines are sustained or even increased within this year. Kung kakayanin ng mga manufacturer na atin na enlist, best case scenario ay makakamit natin ang herd immunity po ngayong taon.
Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez is likewise concerned about the limitations of vaccine supply since 80% of this were already procured by developed countries. He said the Philippines is among those aiming to get a share of the remaining global supply. To augment vaccine supply, Galvez said fully subsidized Pfizer and Moderna vaccines under the World Health Organization's COVAX facility may arrive next month.
The supply and demand, the global supply and demand is very, very acute in 2021. We might be having some sort of shortfall maybe on the second or first quarter of 2022.
Another question raised is whether the vaccines may be used pending regulatory approval. Well, the Food and Drug Administration said it's only a matter of time, with Pfizer's emergency use authority due in 2 days' time. The permit for Moderna may also be out sometimes this month.
Unang-una po, it's a safety concern po kasi hindi po approved product itong gagamitin natin. It's a product that we're using under emergency use. Pag ganun po, yung mga kumpanya, hindi rin po sila nag-take ng responsibility para sa kanilang produkto. Ang national government po will take responsibility for using a product that is still under development.
But Senator Kiko Pangilinan worries whether enough Filipinos are willing to be vaccinated.
Kung walang tiwala at suporta mula sa taong bayan sa bakuna, hindi magtatagumpay ang anumang programa.
The Health Department confirmed that they will issue a communication drive to effectively inform the public about the safety of the vaccines to be rolled out. For News 5, Jenny Dongon, We Are One News.
Meanwhile, more local government units are securing deals to procure shots from UK pharmaceutical firm AstraZeneca. But adding to possible sources of vaccines is India's Covovax. Greg Gregorio with the details.
The Manila LGU has inked a deal for the procurement of 800,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccines from the British-Swedish company AstraZeneca as part of its 250 million peso vaccination program. Manila Mayor Isko Moreno also signed documents today for the purchase of 12 refrigeration units and 50 units of portable coolers, which will be placed within the Santa Ana Hospital compound.
We are already building our Manila COVID-19 vaccine storage facility. Ngayon, nag-appropriate tayo ng 130 square meter para i-house natin yung 12 refrigeration para sa mga bakuna. Ang goal, yakapin natin as many as possible.
Valenzuela City, meanwhile, has also secured a deal with AstraZeneca for the procurement of 640,000 doses of its COVID-19 vaccine. Mayor Rex Gatchalian says they aim to achieve herd immunity through the inoculation of 70% of the city's population.
Titignan mo dun sa market price list, sila yung pinakamura. Sila yung isa sa may pinakamadaling handling. Yung temperature that you need for it is not any different from the vaccines that we already use for our other needs.
Aside from Manila and Valenzuela, here are other LGUs that have also procured doses of AstraZeneca's vaccine. AstraZeneca's application for Emergency Use Authorization or EUA in the country is still pending with the FDA, along with the application of Pfizer and the pending complete submission of Russia's Gamaleya. Dr. Tony Liachon, former advisor to the National Task Force Against COVID-19, says the government should buy more shots from AstraZeneca instead of China's Sinovac. But Gatchalian has clarified that LGUs were able to secure deals with AstraZeneca instead of other vaccines because of an established framework by the national government. This framework enables the LGUs to secure vaccines even when the makers are still applying for an EUA.
Sila yung may framework pa lang. So in effect, sila ang procuring procuring party or avenue. Kami lang yung parang nagpoka ng magkano.
Presidential spokesperson Roque in his press briefing says LGUs can't buy vaccines on their own unless they enter into a tripartite agreement with the national government. The government is still in talks with other sources of COVID-19 vaccine, with vaccine czar Carlito Galvez Jr. signing a deal with India's Serum Institute for 30 million doses of its vaccine Covovax. Covovax is still in its late-stage trials and has not applied for an EUA in the Philippines. For News 5, Greg Gregorio, We Are One News.
And speaking of that necessary tripartite agreement, more than 200 private companies will enter into another such deal with AstraZeneca and the national government for additional shots this Thursday. Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship Joey Concepcion says they will procure around 6 million shots this time around. They plan to donate half to government and then they will distribute the rest to their employees. The first deal was inked last November, in which over 30 companies secured 2.6 million shots worth 700 million pesos.
Swerte naman yung private sector na sa tulong ng AstraZeneca nangyari yan. So, abot yung total doses ng private sector ngayon sa 6 million.
The post-holiday surge in COVID-19 cases is real. That is confirmation coming from the palace. Malacanang spokesman Roque says the daily case count reflects just that. Today, the country logged more than 2,000 new coronavirus infections. That's the highest single-day increase since December 18. On 1PH sa totoo lang, the Octa Research Group also confirmed that the COVID reproduction number, or R0, has now reached 1.13 in Metro Manila. The reproduction number is also expected to go up in the coming weeks, but Roque sees the increase in infections as manageable, especially with vaccines already on their way. And hospitals are allotting around 60% of their bed capacity for COVID-19 patients.
Miski marami pa tayong kama sa mga ospital, ayan na po sa Pebrero ang bakuna. Ano ba naman kayo? Konting antay na lang yan po.
We'll go for a quick break. When the big story returns, multitudes of devotees still flock to Quiapo despite the threat of COVID-19. The health department wants those present to monitor for symptoms. And the body of Christine Decera has been laid to rest, but not before the NBI conducted a re-autopsy. The details on that after the break. Good evening, I'm Robbie Allanpay. You're still watching The Big Story. Experts are warning that the traslasyon on Saturday was a super spreader of the coronavirus. What happens now to the thousands who participated in the event? Let's find out in this report by Maricel Halidi.
The Health Department advises all devotees of the Black Nazarene who took part in this year's traslasyon to undergo self-quarantine. The PNP says around 50,000 flocked to Quiapo for the annual religious event. The church estimated some 284,000 in attendance. This despite the cancellation of the procession and other traditions like the pahalik due to the pandemic.
Pero kung siguro magmula nung nag-umpisa, kahit nung mga nakarang araw, abot siguro ng more or less 100,000.
Also, despite best efforts to implement health protocols like wearing of face shields and maintaining social distancing, some devotees were still spotted crowding in the area during the event. An expert from the Healthcare Professionals Alliance Against COVID-19 earlier warned that gatherings like the traslasyon are super spreaders of COVID-19.
Nakikita naman po natin yung dating selebrasyon ng traslasyon ay isang mass gathering, no? So sa isang mass gathering, dikit-dikit ang mga tao, yung hinga ng bawat isa, nahihina na ng kabila, nalanghap na. So it is considered a super spreader event because it was a mass gathering.
Many devotees, though, still followed safety protocols during the Feast of the Black Nazarene. Before entering the Quiapo Church, mass goers are required to fill out a contact tracing form. Many devotees fell in line at the Quezon Boulevard, Palanca, and Villalobos Street while waiting for their chance to hear the Mass. Markers were placed on the roads to ensure physical distancing. 12 LED screens were also placed around Quiapo so that more devotees will be able to witness the masses. But many of them still wanted to make their way inside, even though it means standing in line for hours. One of them is Mark, who waited for his chance to enter the Quiapo Church for 6 hours.
Para po sa pananampalataya po, nagpapasalamat sa poong may kapal. Panata ko na po kasi ito taon-taon, halos taon-taon po.
For Kevin, who used to be among those pulling the Nazarene's carriage past traslasyons, the cancellation of the procession did not affect his faith on the Nazareno.
Sa ngayon po medyo mahirap po pero naiintindihan naman po namin yung patakaran dahil po sa pandemic.
Ano po bang importante sa inyo, sir, bilang isang namamanata sa...
Yung paniniwala po at panalangin namin po.
Other devotees opted to celebrate the feast on television or on the internet. They said a remote observance of the feast does not mean faltering devotion.
Ngayon lang talaga kami umabsent dahil nga dito sa pandemic. Pero sinuot ko pa rin ang aking t-shirt. Start last December 31 ba yan yung novena ng novenaryo? So yan, nag-start na kami.
Itinataas ko pa yung kamay ko, talagang kung ano yung ginagawa ko sa mahal na Ama. Sa pakiramdam ko, parehas lang eh. Sabi nga doon sa misa saan ka man naroroon, si Jesus ako. Kahit na andito ako sa bahay, kasama ko siya kanina.
The Health Department advises those who physically participated in the traslasyon in Quiapo to stay at home and stay away from high-risk individuals. Devotees experiencing COVID-19 symptoms like dry cough or fever are advised to consult their local barangays or call the DOH hotline flashed on your screens. For News 5, Maricel Halili, we are One News.
Now, in contrast to those scenes in Manila, Cebuanos seem to be more willing to forgo their yearly tradition. The Sunulog Festival has been cancelled. For the first time in 41 years, the Sunulog Grand Parade, one of the largest and grandest festivals in the country, has been called off. Even virtual events will not push through. The IATF earlier did not allow Sunulog performances, including pre-recorded ones, to prevent the spread of COVID-19. A program will still be shown on January 17, but it will only replay performances from previous years. A special task force has been formed to investigate the death of cabin crew Christine Decera. The chief PNP also wants a separate probe into the lapses of the Makati police. He wants findings to be submitted no later than Wednesday. The details in Camille Samontes' report.
On Sunday, Christine was finally laid to rest in her hometown in General Santos. The Decera family thanks everybody who rallied behind her. But before Christine's burial, the National Bureau of Investigation collected samples from her remains. The NBI admits forensic examination proved to be difficult since embalming has more or less contaminated Christine's body. But Deputy Director Ferdinand Lavin expresses eagerness to try their luck.
It was more than worth it. We have very interesting leads. We have very interesting, encouraging results.
Police Chief Debold Sinas, meanwhile, has ordered a separate inquiry on Makati City Police for possible lapses in handling Decera's case. He wants recommendations by January 13. Sinas called on the activation of a Special Investigation Task Force Decera to be led by the Criminal Investigation and Detection Group.
Kung ano po ang recommendations ng Director for Investigation and Detective Management ay i-evaluate po ko po yun at doon po kami mag-usap ng RD, ng NCRPO to compare notes regarding sa inquiry na gagawin po ng DIDM.
Sinas says NCR Regional Director Vicente Dana would still oversee the case. The PNP will also look into the administrative complaint filed by the Decera family. They want the medical legal officer to be dismissed from service for authorizing an embalmment procedure before autopsy. Sinas says he has yet to receive a copy of the complaint. Christine's friends, meanwhile, asked the public for donations for their legal defense. They have since denied any involvement in her untimely death. The group says it cannot fund lawyer fees as most of them could not work while investigation is ongoing.
Some of them are currently suspended sa work nila. Some of them cannot fly because of the ongoing case, meaning they're not earning habang tumatakbo tong kaso na to.
They also appeal to lawmakers to recall bounties placed on their heads. For News 5, Camille Samonte, we are One News.
And these are the other big stories tonight. Jonel Nuesca, the policeman behind the murder of a mother and son in Tarlac, has been dismissed from the police force. Nuesca still faces 2 murder cases at the Tarlac Regional Trial Court. He has pleaded not guilty despite having been captured on video shooting his 2 neighbors point blank. The country's toll roads will not go full cashless just yet. That means those without RFID stickers will still not be apprehended along expressways. Now, let's recall that the Transportation Department earlier set a January 12 deadline for the use of RFIDs. The Toll Regulatory Board says cash lanes will still be open as more motorists transition to going cashless. And this just in, according to Palace spokesman Harry Roque, former Justice Secretary Vitaliano Aguirre has been appointed as the new commissioner of the National Police Commission, or NAPOLCOM. We'll go for a quick break. When the big story returns, Democrats are pushing Vice President Mike Pence to invoke the 25th Amendment in hopes of removing outgoing U.S. President Donald Trump from office just days before he officially steps down. And the black boxes for the Indonesian airliner, which crashed over the weekend, have been detected. More details later. Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Allanpay. Have you been feeling the nippier weather lately? Well, that's been the case for most parts of the country due to the northeast monsoon. Many tourists took advantage of the cold and went to Tagaytay for the chilly weather. Laila Pangilinan is right there. Laila, gaano kalamig dyan?
Nako, Robbie, if you have plans on going to Tagaytay, better make sure that you have your jacket with you, or you bring somebody to hold hands with or hug, as the temperature here has significantly dropped.
It was a sweater weather in Tagaytay this morning. Temperature dropped to 17 degrees Celsius, and this family in Batangas wants to experience the chill firsthand.
Sabi po kasi malamig daw. Tinry lang namin kung malamig. Malamig nga. Ang tagal po talaga sa bahay, naka-standby sa bahay. Ngayon lang po talaga, kaya sulit na sulit ang pagpunta namin dito sa Tagaytay.
The windy and chilly weather is felt best at the People's Park, one of the highest peaks in the city. But better hold on to your face shield, as strong winds will be sure to snatch it away. Joyce and her family regulars here and admits it's much colder now than in previous years.
Malamig po, pero masaya naman po kasi nakaka-enjoy kasama yung family namin.
Vendors in the area have been experiencing the frigid weather for a few days straight, but they said that the cool weather came a bit late.
3 araw na pong ganito, sobrang lamig. 3 days na po. Namimiss nga namin noong December, wala pa rin noong December. Ngayon po January, basta meron.
Pag-asa says that the chilly weather in Tagaytay, as well as in most parts of the country, was brought by the Amihan, or northeast monsoon.
Because of the presence of high-pressure cells sa Asia, yung mga malamig na hangin doon ay nakakarating ng hanggang dito sa Pilipinas. Yun po yung tinatawag nating amihan during the months of November to February.
Garden and plant shop owners welcome the cold season as plants are not often watered during the cold weather, saving them money and energy. But the strong winds are a different story.
Para po kasing may bagyo, lakas. Napamansin nyo naman na talagang sobra. At tinatago na lang po namin. Pagkatapos po namin magsara sa gabi, pinapasok po namin sa loob.
In Benguet, a netizen shared on social media that plants are now covered in frost due to the icy cold weather.
Robbie, currently the temperature here is 20 degrees Celsius. Masyadong malamig dito para sa ating mga taga-Maynila. And residents say that it gets really foggy here in the wee hours of the night until sunrise. And for those who really want to experience the Tagaytay weather, there are some reminders. Children from 14 years and below and senior citizens 65 years old and above are still not allowed in public places. And of course, while you're at it, if you guys are going to bring your jacket with you, make sure you have your face mask and your face shield because strict health and safety protocols are still in effect. And that's the latest here, Robbie. Back to you.
Maraming salamat, Laila. That was Laila Pangilinan enjoying the cold weather in Tagaytay. Now, time for the big stories in sports. A look at the game with Laura Lehman.
Thanks, Robbie. In NBA news, Anthony Davis is back and returned in a big way to lead the Los Angeles Lakers past the Houston Rockets 120-102. The Brow sat out last game with a groin strain, but he quickly reminded the league why he's one of the premier big men with 27 big points. Tensions were high with ejections coming from both sides. But the Lakers kept in control and led in double figures, coasting to an easy win. The Lakers will face the Rockets again this Wednesday morning, Manila time. Catch the NBA regular season action on NBA TV Philippines. Now on to our national team news. The first batch of the Gilas Pilipinas pool has entered the bubble at the NU Inspire Sports in Laguna. 10 players from the Bahrain team are joined by naturalization candidate Angelo Kwame and Gilas veteran Kiefer Rabena as the sole PBA players so far. The team will be expecting the rest of the PBA contingent in the next weeks as they prepare for the FIBA Asia Cup qualifiers in February. Currently, the players and coaches are quarantined in their rooms until they get their RT-PCR test results. And that's it for the latest in the world of sports. My name is Laura Lehman, and this has been The Game.
Thanks, Laura. Now, never mind that he is just a few days away from vacating his post. House Democrats are bent on impeaching outgoing U.S. President Donald Trump again. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi led the planning for Trump's ouster. The plan includes urging Vice President Mike Pence to invoke the 25th Amendment. This will declare Trump incapable of fulfilling his duties in office. If Pence does not respond, Democrats will proceed with a second round of impeachments against Trump. Biden, who has bannered unity and healing in his victory speeches, says he is leaving impeachment talks to Congress. Indonesian authorities have located black boxes suspected to belong to the Sriwijaya air flight that crashed into the Java Sea on Saturday. The Indonesian military says 2 signals from the black boxes have been monitored and marked. The search for the wreckage continues. It is believed to be at 23 meters below sea level. 8 ships, 4 helicopters, and 50 divers have been dispatched for the rescue work. The airliner had 62 people on board. And that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250. Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. I'm Robbie Allanpay. We are One News. Good evening.